So when did you decide, right, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to start making video essays on this. So tell me a bit about how your love for the Godfather trilogy started. How did you get into it? Awesome. So is it something you do by yourself, or do you have a team? Do you have guys who work with you, or is it just are you just a one man army? If you had to pick between the first two, which one would it be? Let's go on then to the third one. What's your opinion on Godfather Part 3? Did you ever hear
Yeah.
about the plans for the Godfather Part 4 too? But imagine in your head, the Godfather Part 2 is exactly the same as it was now, except there's no such character as Frank Pentangeli, and instead it's Peter Clemenza. And everything we see about Pentangeli happens to Clemenza. He slits his wrist in the end. That scene between him and Tom Hagen in prison, the court proceedings, the hearing, all of that kind of stuff. Would you prefer the film as it is now, or would you prefer it with Clemenza? So where do your ideas then come from when you're making a video? Is it just you're watching the film and something pops in your head? But let's say Fredo did what he did. What decision do you think Vito would have made? Oh my God. So speaking of favorite scenes, what would be yours in the entire trilogy? What's the one standout scene? So apart from The Godfather, then, what are your favorite crime films? What are the ones that you think are right up there with The Godfather, if any? Do you think the genre is finished? Because that's the vibe that many people get. That you, but obviously the voice in your videos is not your voice clearly. So is there a particular reason for that? Did you use a text to speech software? Is it? So ready to rumble?
Let's go. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, so obviously, I've come across your channel because we make similar videos. You make videos on The Godfather. I make videos on The Godfather. So tell me a bit about how your love for The Godfather trilogy started. How did you get into it?
Well, the first time I watched it was like years ago, and I didn't really get it. I knew it was a good movie, but it was like kind of old, and like the lighting was all dark and stuff.
Hmm.
And then, it was just a movie that I watched. Then a couple of years later, I came across there was like a documentary that Francis Coppola was in, and he started talking about like the themes behind The Godfather.
Right.
So things like capitalism and like, his rise to power. So that intrigued me. So when I rewatched it, it was like I was watching it like for the first time, and I was like blown away because it had everything, like great acting, all of that. So yeah.
Was that just the first one then, or was that all three of them? Were just the first two?
It was the first two, yeah. The first time I watched part three, I just got bored and I left it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just the first part, yeah, one and two.
So have you heard about Coppola's the recent news about the 4K restoration? Are you interested in that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. Even if it's like in theaters, I would actually go and watch that. But I don't think it's gonna be here, where I live. But yeah,
Mm.
it's actually good. Like, I'm looking forward to see like how it would look 4K and all that.
Yeah, the trailer looks good. I'm hoping they just don't mess it up. Like, sometimes they mess around with the color and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
because especially with the darkness, because the Godfather is a dark movie. It's supposed to be dark. They did that intentionally while they were making it. So I hope they don't
yeah,
start because I watched the trailer and it's like everything kind of looks very bright, and I'm hoping they don't mess it up. But the thing that I'm kind of disappointed with is that because there's loads of bonus content apparently going to be in the 4K restoration with the DVDs and all that, but the deleted scenes are what I wanted. Have you explored the deleted scenes of The Godfather? Because they some of them are absolutely amazing.
yeah. To be honest, The Godfather, no exaggeration, there shouldn't have been any deleted scenes. Like from the they made a novel for they called it a novel for television, which is
Mm,
like they put them all in chronological order. So like you see the rise of Vito, then you meet Vito when he's with Bonacera and all that.
mm.
And the deleted scenes are like there's one where he meets Hyman Roth. There's the one that Sonny walks back to like after he gets the news of Vito being shot and all that. It's like yeah, I don't. I hope they don't like they actually include those, and if they could like add even more.
Yeah, because that I mean, I still can't believe that somewhere along the line, with the constant anniversaries of the film, they don't just release a kind of full version, or because like you said, the made-for-TV version or The Godfather, the novel for television, whatever it was called, just release a full version of that with all the deleted scenes, restore them, because that would have been amazing, I think. Do you have
Yeah,
any
yeah.
deleted scenes that in your head that you think this one was just amazing? I can't believe they cut it out. For me, it's the I actually made a video on this. It's the part where Sonny, after his father gets assassinated, he goes and tells his mother about the assassination, and then he goes and into his father's room and phones up Luca Brasi, which just kind of rings through, and he phones up Tessio, asks him he needs some men, which I thought was a really great scene. There's a lot of subtext in that scene, a lot of nuance. Do you have any in particular?
Yeah, that one definitely sticks out. Uh, there's so many because now I just watched like the extended one, so they all like it's to me that's the whole movie. I don't watch like the original one that much anymore. Yeah,
Right.
just probably the scenes from like when the young Vito scenes.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I think that. Yeah, I can't think of any at the moment.
No worries. So yeah, so tell me then. So you know the YouTube channel. How did that come into play then? So obviously you've clearly got a great love for the Godfather films. You've got a lot of knowledge about them. So when did you decide? Right, I'm going to make a YouTube channel. I'm going to start making video essays on this.
Yeah, so I've been trying. I've been like during like my time at like university. I just wanted to do something like kind of fun online and stuff. I always had an interest in like making content and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't have like the skill set to actually do it properly. So I've tried different like styles of channels just for fun and that. But
Mm.
then I came across like the whole video essay type scene. So like, I found all these channels that make video essays about movies and stuff, and I found that like really intriguing.
Cool.
So so yeah, I said okay, I'll try to do that. Where should I start? Well, The Godfather has a lot of lessons, and I thought I should go from there. Yeah.
Awesome. So is it something you do by yourself, or do you have a team? Do you have guys who work with you, or is it just are you just a one man army?
No, it's just me. Yeah. I had to learn like everything from scratch, which is all right, but
Wow.
like yeah,
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? In terms of it does give you a lot of skills because there's a lot more involved than someone might think with a YouTube channel.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, so in terms of the films, then I mean, it's a question that loads of Godfather fans get asked and ask each other. If you had to pick between the first two, which one would it be?
See, for me, it depends on like it changes like consistently. So like one
Right.
time when I watched like both of them, I would like that at that time I would like part one more, but then I would watch the part two later on, and then I would like that one more. So, but I think as a movie as a whole, the first one is like perfect.
Yeah.
Which
So
one would you choose? Yeah.
I mean, similar to what you said, it kind of changes, doesn't it? But like you said, the
Yeah.
first one is such a complete movie. It works
Mm,
from beginning to end. All the characters, the structure, the pacing, everything is just perfect. The second one is a little bit more difficult to get into because there's so much uncertainty in like the first hour. Like you don't really know what it's about. You don't know who the assassins are. Michael
yeah.
knows things that he hasn't yet told the audience, and it's all a bit,
Mm,
But then once the film really gets going, it just becomes amazing. And I mean, I don't know, maybe it's stronger than the first. I don't know. But the thing is, it changes day by day. If I watch the first one now, I'll say the first one's better. If I watch the second one now, I'll say the second one's better. So let's go on then to the third one. What's your opinion on Godfather Part 3?
um. Well, I rewatched it like quite recently, like last year probably. And it wasn't that bad. Like it was my first time watching it from start to finish, and it wasn't horrible, but it had like a lot of problem. It had the potential. It had the like it could have been amazing, but they just didn't like follow through with it.
All right. How would you
But
improve it then? And what would you say its main problems were?
I mean, to be honest, there's like a lot, but the main thing, if they just got this one thing right, it would have been way better. It's I don't want to just blame it on Al Pacino, but he wasn't Michael Corleone. Like
Mm.
he was just it was I don't know. It didn't seem like I was watching the same character from like part two, who's like calm and like calculated and all that. This guy was just like it was different, but you can't blame him. It's like I don't know how long after the original was.
Yeah, a common complaint is that he essentially just plays himself. Because in the
Exactly. Yeah.
90s, he had that kind of thing where he was screaming and shouting and
Yeah.
very exaggerated performances. And he couldn't quite capture that kind of quiet, silent menace from the Godfather Part 2, when he's playing with his eyes and all of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, you can't really blame him because that's kind of how the character is played in the third film. That's probably how it was written in the script for him. There's not much you can do about that. Did you ever hear
Yeah.
about the plans for The Godfather Part 4? That there was some serious
Um.
concrete plans from Mario Puzo and Francis Coppola for making a fourth one. They genuinely wanted to make it, but Puzo
Oh
died,
wow.
and after that,
Oh,
Coppola lost interest because he said that it was so much of it came from Puzo's head that he didn't want to continue without him. But have you heard about it?
I've heard that they had like a script for it based on a novel or something like that. But yeah, I didn't know that they actually were planning to actually go through with it.
Yeah, so actually, it's interesting that Coppola was actually so far in development. So they had a script. I don't think it was a finished script, but Puzo had written a script, and essentially it was going to mimic The Godfather Part Two. So they'd be telling two stories, one present day and one set in the past. The set present day one would be following Andy Garcia, who was obviously taking over the family, and it'll basically show him kind of running the family into the ground, him getting involved in drugs, gang wars, all that kind of stuff. And it would end with him dying in a flurry of bullets. The past storyline, the flashbacks would be on Andy Garcia's dad, Sonny. So it'd show how he kind of rose in the ranks and was taken under his father's wing and became a member of the Corleone family. That template was taken and written into a book by Ed Falco called The Family Corleone. This novel, which is quite good. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a prequel novel. It's worth checking out. Um, so yeah, that was the story. And apparently, in terms of casting, Eddie Murphy was supposed to play a bad guy. I mean that to me is just so bizarre. I don't understand that at all. But he was supposed to kind of play like a Harlem gang leader who would go up against Andy
Uh,
Garcia. Leonardo DiCaprio was supposed to play Sonny, which again, I just can't see him in the role of James Caan. He just doesn't have that macho masculine intensity. I don't know what you think, but I just can't see it. Especially him with red curly hair, that would just be so weird. This is an interesting one. Um, Robert De Niro was apparently supposed to play Vito Corleone again. Obviously, this time he's basically in between Marlon Brando's Corleone and the young Vito he played because
his
he's
original.
obviously in between then in age, and they would have kind of done him with makeup and everything. Al Pacino would have had one scene in the film, and it's literally the same scene from the end of The Godfather Part Three. So you know that part where Pacino's sitting on the chair and then he slumps over and he falls down, he dies.
Yeah, yeah,
What they
yeah.
were going to do was that scene would be in The Godfather Part Four, and it would be Andy Garcia coming to him, asking him for advice, and then Andy Garcia walks away, and then the scene ends, and we obviously know from the third film that he's going to die now, and that's the only time Al Pacino would have been in the film. So yeah, that's what it
Mm.
would have been about, mimicking The Godfather Part Two, two concurrent stories. Andy Garcia, um, Sonny, basically us following him with the rise of the Corleone family, and they'd incorporate characters like Luca Brasi and Vito Corleone showing their rise to power. Meanwhile, the fall of the family with Andy Garcia's Vincent Corleone. So, what do you think of that? What do you think of that as an idea?
I mean, as an idea, it's gonna be like I'm sure Francis could make it like amazing, but the thing is, it's never gonna be as good as the first two. Like it's
Mm,
gonna be a Godfather movie. It's gonna be like maybe better than the third, and it had
yeah,
like yeah, it's probably gonna be very entertaining and like intriguing and all that. But it's like if they're gonna make it, it can't be competing with the first two. They have to try and make it its own thing. I think.
yeah. I mean, it's one of those where when I think about it, I think it sounds better than just on paper. It sounds better than the third film. It's kind of more veering into, mob territory, which is what people liked.
Yeah.
Because obviously the third film was, with the Catholic Church, and it was kind of corruption in the legitimate world, which is interesting, but a lot of people didn't really find that as interesting because that's not what you come to a Godfather film for. So I think this kind
Yeah.
of, I mean, it could have been interesting. So you've made a fair few video essays. You've explored certain characters. Who would you say is your favorite character aside from Don Michael and Don Vito? Which is the character that you think is most intriguing that you can talk about so much about, who has the most interesting backstory and just something someone that you can talk all day about?
Um. Well, of course, there's quite a few, but maybe the first one's like probably Tom Hagen.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe not his origin story, but like he's the one who's like witnessed everything with Vito and all that. He knows all his secrets. Like in the
Yeah.
novel, they say that he knows where all the money's held, what assets they hold, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. Yeah. Because in the book, in the first book, Puzo's book, he's almost the main character because it's him. It's usually we're inside his head, what he's thinking about certain situations. He's kind of narrating what Don Vito Corleone is doing. So it's interesting that he's so integral to the book, but in the movie, he's just one of the many side characters. I mean, some of my favorites are guys like Luca Brasi. I don't know what you think about him, but I don't know why he's just someone I think was really captivating. He's in the film for so little time, doesn't actually do anything except gets killed, but he looks so menacing. I always call him the
Yeah,
Boba Fett of the Godfather
yeah,
franchise because it's the same situation. They look cool, but ultimately they don't actually do anything. But they've got this famous reputation, and the family Corleone, the novel, which is based on Puzo's script for the Part Four movie, is actually quite good, and it expands on the Luca Brasi character quite a lot. He's one of the main characters in this, so I mean, it's worth checking out if you're interested in that character. Sonny as well is another great one. He's
yeah.
expanded
Sonny
on
definitely.
in
Yeah,
he's expanded on in Family Corleone a lot, and obviously he's much more uh he's got a lot more depth in the original Puzo book than in the movie. Because
yeah,
in the movie, he's basically a hothead, isn't he? You know,
yeah,
Michael is the intelligent one, Fredo is the weak one, and Sonny is the aggressive one. And it's kind of like you put all those guys together, and then you get Vito, I guess. That's one way of looking at it. But when you read the Godfather book, Sonny, you kind of think to yourself, well, he was kind of hard done by the movie. And James Caan, interestingly, actually agrees with this. He said that there were so many scenes that he filmed that add depth to his character that were just left on the cutting room floor. I mean, the most obvious example is the one that we just talked about with him telling the mum about Vito shooting and then going into his father's office. And there's one
yeah,
really good shot I love where he looks at his father's chair.
yeah,
You think he's going to sit in it, but he pulls up a side chair instead of sitting
mm,
in his father's throne, which is such a great little touch. But yeah, he's one that you could explore a lot further, and obviously a fourth film was going to do that. But one thing that I kind of think is a bit with the Godfather Part Four, that idea is that the focus of the Godfather film is always um, Don Vito and his son Michael. It's like it's them two. You know, when you think of the Godfather, it's Michael Corleone and Vito Corleone. The fourth film is kind of veering off now into telling us about Vincent and Sonny, like that kind of
yeah,
ancestral line, which is kind of like, it's moving away from Michael Corleone, who is pretty much the central character of the trilogy. So I mean, yeah, there's interesting things here and there. So do you by any chance, do you have a because obviously you've made so many videos on the Godfather. I've made so many ones as well. Do you have like a favorite theory, something that isn't canon, but it's canon in your head? Like you like this idea. Like I'll tell you one that I have, for example. So in the Godfather Part Two, when the assassination attempt is done on Michael, and Kay asks, you know, who opened the blinds or who opened the drapes, and he looks there, and then obviously the shooters start shooting, and there's chaos after that. They never actually tell us who opened the drapes. And I made a video on this. I think it's called Secret Traitor Revealed in The Godfather Part 2, something like that, where I basically argue that Rocco Lampone was the one who either opened the drapes or by his kind of because he was in charge of security, it was his failing that led to the assassins being able to do the shooting, which is why he is punished by being sent on that essentially suicide mission to kill Hyman Roth. Because he does die. You think why would somebody as high up as Rocco Lampone be sent on a mission like that? You just send a random goon. But there's many clues in there that kind of make that theory work. So do you have any
mm.
of your own that you think, you know what, this isn't canon? I know it's not canon, but I like this idea and I wish that it actually existed.
I can't really think of any good ones because they're all like explained later on in like the other novels or like stuff like that. I think the Fredo one, the curtain one, there's like a lot of interpretations or like was it him? He went inside and opened it. That's why he said, "I didn't know it was going to be a hit." Did he send someone? Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Fredo is probably the biggest. He's the one that probably everybody kind of jumps to, as in it's the most obvious suspect. But I always like the kind of Rocco thing, like as a kind of alternative thing, almost as if this is a kind of hidden subplot in the film, with him being sent as punishment to kill Hyman Roth. None of this is actually mentioned by any dialogue. A bit like the father son theme between Michael and Vito, how they don't see eye to eye in the first film. They have different
yeah.
philosophies on life, but none of that is actually ever mentioned. But we clearly get that from the film. But that's just how amazing the movie is. So
I actually thought of one. Sorry. Yeah.
is it? Yeah,
Um,
go on then.
do you know the scene where what's his name? Pentangeli's in the bar. He meets with the Rosado brothers, and then the cop walks in and all that.
Yeah,
I made a video where that it was all planned. Like they planned for the cop to. I can't remember exactly what I said, but the cop, what's it called? They planned for the cop to come inside just to make Frank think that Michael had sent them, because when they put the what's it called, the rope around, then they tried to strangle him. They say Michael Corleone says hello,
mm.
and then yeah, I made a video about it. I can't remember exactly what I said, but yeah, they planned for the cop to come. Hyman Roth planned for the cop to come inside because he just wanted to like get Frank to flip on Michael, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good theory. That actually makes a lot of sense because that line confuses so many people. I was actually going to make a video on that as well, addressing that because if you're going to kill Frank Pentangeli, why say Michael Corleone says hello? Is it just to give him one last thought of that his friend Michael betrayed him before he dies? But it doesn't really make any sense to say that.
yeah,
Um, but like you say, if the whole thing, including the cop, was a setup, then it will click. So it finally makes sense that they want him to flip on Michael, but not to rain on your parade with this theory, but there is actually well, basically, I can't remember what his name is, but the actor who said that, Mark Corleone says hello. He's been in a few films. He was in Once Upon a Time in America as well. I saw an interview where he said he basically ad-libbed the line. So it wasn't in the script. So he was strangling the
oh
guy and he
yeah,
just said Michael Corleone says hello. And Coppola kept it in the film because he thought, I don't know why he kept it in the film, but maybe it sounded cool or whatever. So it was that's pretty much it really. It was just the actor ad-libbed it and they left it in the film. So that's probably why there's so much confusion. But maybe it was a case of the filmmakers thought that maybe we can leave this in, and there's the kind of insinuation that it was a setup, and
yeah,
your theory ends up being actually canon, which and it is a good theory. It makes a lot of sense, and it adds a lot of depth to that scene and Frank Pentangeli as a character, because then it's all kind of sad, really. Like his story is quite sad because he's supposed to be, an OG of the Corleone family, and he doesn't kind of outright betray the Corleones. It's kind of like he thought he was being betrayed. Did
yeah,
you hear that that character was supposed to originally be Clemenza?
yeah.
Yeah, and obviously the actor dropped out, and they created a new character.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that theory about. I heard the guy say he just added it in, but yeah,
Mm.
that's like a theory that. But yeah, Clemenza, yeah, that was a bit weird. It was um, like he should have been in the movie. Like even if they had Pentangeli as well, or like at least show us the death of Clemenza, so like we know a bit more. But then the movie, like they cut it out because like it would have been like way too long, probably something like that. But yeah,
Yeah, because
Clemenza is one of my favorite
yeah,
characters.
I love Clemenza, but I mean, I did a whole video, and there's a whole story behind it that him and the studio fell out, and it wasn't supposedly over money or anything like that. It was the direction of the character. So Richard Castellano, who plays Clemenza, he didn't like. First of all, he wanted his dialogue rewritten. He wanted to rewrite the dialogue, and secondly, he didn't like the idea of Clemenza flipping. He said that would never happen. Clemenza would never do that. So what would you actually prefer then? Because I've spoken a lot about this in one of my videos. I think it was why was Clemenza not on The Godfather Part Two? But imagine in your head, The Godfather Part Two is exactly the same as it was now, except there's no such character as Frank Pentangeli, and instead it's Peter Clemenza. And everything we see about Pentangeli happens to Clemenza. He slits his wrist in the end. That scene between him and Tom Hagen in prison, the court proceedings, the hearing, all of that kind of stuff. Would you prefer the film as it is now, or would you prefer it with Clemenza?
Um, I think I would prefer it like with it now, because yeah,
So even though Clemenza is one of your favorite characters.
yeah, because I would like having the image of him like being an old school like proper like gangster like Vito and all that. Um, because he's like the because Tessio ends up like betraying Michael, and
There you
Clemenza's
go.
like the only one left that's actually loyal.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the reason I said it was like okay, Vito has two capo regimes. Tessio's already betrayed him, and how is it that Clemenza goes and does the same thing, and it's nice knowing, thinking in your head that he died a loyal man, loyal to the Corleones.
Yeah,
Whilst at the same time it would be cool seeing him in the film because he's such an amazing character. One of my
yeah,
favorites, one of your favorites, and it would have been really sad hearing him say that line. I don't know if you remember, but Pentangeli says something like, "We were like the Roman Empire,"
yeah.
and
That's
they
yeah,
reminisce about that. But that doesn't really have as much weight because we didn't know Pentangeli. He was never in the first film. We've not seen him as much. We just kind of know that he betrayed Michael. But if
yeah. That's the
if it was
thing.
Clemenza who said that line, we'd be reminiscing. We'd have all the nostalgia from the first film, and then the sad image of seeing him with his slits, his wrists slit open. But like you say, what we got instead was Clemenza dying a loyal man, a proper old school mafioso gangster, and we got a new great character, uh,
Yeah.
Pentangeli. So it all works out in the end.
Yeah, they could have fixed that because, as you said, yeah, it doesn't have that much weight when Pentangeli flips and he says the Roman Empire and all that.
Mm.
They could have fixed it. There's one scene that I think it's deleted, but Vito meets Hyman Roth, like the young and Clemenza introduces him to him. So they could have just added like Pentangeli somewhere there, just give him one line or something. So then, like at least we see him back in the day with Vito and all that,
Yeah, definitely,
something like
definitely,
that. Yeah.
because he just kind of comes out of nowhere and he's all of
Yeah.
a sudden in charge of the entire Corleone operation in New York. If you knew the original actor for Clemenza wasn't going to return, maybe you should have just shoved Pentangeli in there somewhere in the young Vito scenes. But maybe they
Yeah.
didn't want to make it seem too forced because sometimes the one of the issues with that is that you make the universe seem too small. Like it's just the
Oh yeah.
same.
Yeah.
It's like kind of what these other kind of films do, where they like the Star Wars films, Marvel films, where they keep bringing back old characters, and it's like there's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
10 people in the universe. That's what it kind of feels like.